Welcome to our presentation here with Nelson Zambrano. He's going to be sharing with us today about how to invest in a boutique hotels in Puerto Rico. And Nelson lives in Puerto Rico. He is an amazing human being. He's got experience like you would not believe. He has served in the military. I'm trying to pull up my notes on, here we go. Um, in the military, with military intelligence and special forces. And Nelson, you did an amazing hike. What was the hike that you did?
I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Nelson and I have been in a mastermind group years back, and I remember you sharing about that and doing that. And that was just incredible. And you've been investing for a long time. You have the Investing in America podcast. You've got a YouTube channel with in English and Spanish. You're publishing a book this year. I mean, you've kind of got it all. And you're specializing in short-term rentals and boutique hotels. And so I'm just really looking forward to hearing your expertise with Puerto Rico and your experience with all of that.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much. And thank you for being invited. You've got a great community here that you're developing. That's a fantastic thing. Um, I just like, first of all, for the folks that are here, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. This is an ongoing series that Sarah is doing, and I feel very honored the fact that she invited me. Well, feel free to put any questions in the chat if you have other questions. I know Sarah has a protocol for the questions, but we'll make sure we get everything answered. But before we begin, does anybody have any questions? Anything? We've got a select group here. So, Sarah, if that's okay with you,
Yeah.
we can do it that way.
And I'd
Um,
love to know what your inspiration is for learning about Puerto Rico. So is that something that you have thought about doing before or investing internationally? Um, what's your interest in this topic? You can
well,
just take.
okay. Yeah, so that's a very good question. And this is like I have a presentation, but this is a fantastic question. So, excuse me. I've invested in the U.S. At the same time, my family is from overseas, and a lot of times there's some very good opportunities overseas. The person has to be kind of up to date on things as to investing overseas. So Puerto Rico is almost like a hybrid model, right? It's like a hybrid model because it is foreign. They do speak Spanish here. However, you have all the rules and regulations of the U.S., which sometimes folks from the U.S. we don't always appreciate them, right? You have to have something to judge things against to know that if it's working or not working or good or bad, right? If you've never felt cold, you don't know what warm feels like. Um, so you have to have. So I've always had an interest in overseas investing, and I discovered Puerto Rico, quite frankly, by accident. I went to school with a lot of Puerto Ricans. I was in the military of Puerto Ricans, and when I was learning about Puerto Rico, it was as if none of those folks existed. They didn't even know about the things that exist in Puerto Rico. Uh, I call Puerto Rico the Monaco of the United States, and some folks don't like that. Why? Because they say, well, no, it's not really. So I describe Monaco is this place in Europe for the extremely wealthy people, right? It has all these incredible laws in the favor. Well, Puerto Rico is the Monaco of U.S. corporations. And as I go through the presentation, a lot of folks are going to be like, "What? I didn't know. I didn't know. How could that be? Where have I been?" But it is. It's the Monaco of U.S. corporations. And so I'm hoping to answer some questions and probably raise some eyebrows too. So let's kick this off. A quick disclaimer right here. So part of the presentation about Puerto Rico and also what we're doing. These are my three partners, fantastic individuals. I would always tell you, make sure your partners have a different skill set than you, um, because if not, then what are your partners? So and I'm going to go with him right quick right here. This is me. I'm the one in Puerto Rico. I moved over here I knew that if you want deals and opportunities, you got to be on the ground. You have to be on the ground. And a place like Puerto Rico really makes it. Why? Because this is not one of those where you go on MLS and find stuff. No, Puerto Rico is a person to person place to do business. It is a if I don't know you, I don't do anything with you kind of place. A little bit about my background right there. I was in the special operations community, military intelligence. I was one of those people recalled to active duty after the 9/11 attacks. And so I did all kinds of very unique and different things, which I enjoyed. During that time, I was always investing and I even did a JV with the city of Fort Lauderdale while I was being deployed. My partner, Mark Wisey, he's a CFA, really smart guy, does a lot of pretty much all of the analysis, the spreadsheets. If I dream about something, he can put into an Excel spreadsheet. Amazing individual that he is, and he'll actually be in Puerto Rico next month. Justin Donnarumma, he's a strong background in the property management side, and I'd also say in the construction side as well. Very good strength and a great family man as well.
And how did you meet them? How did you get
Um,
connected?
Well, similar to when I was dealing with Puerto Rico, I was going on all kinds of podcasts and I was being invited to talk on podcasts here, podcasts there. So Mark actually reached out to me and then Mark spoke to some people and they said, you got to talk to Nelson. You got to talk to Nelson. So he flew down to Puerto Rico. He came, we met, we hit it off. So that's how we met. And then Justin knows Mark from another place. So I was here and it was through different podcasts we met. Hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, I have some more questions about that, but I'll let you continue.
Okay, all right. Well, and everybody, you can put the questions in the chat or feel free to ask as well. But you know what? As a matter of fact, why don't we take opportunity? We've got a small number. Well, I don't know if Cassie or Young, I don't know if they can hop off their phones or not. But when they can, just let us know. All right. So why Puerto Rico, right? So why did I decide on Puerto Rico? One is I found out about all these incredible opportunities I'm going to go into. But why would I look at Puerto Rico? First of all, it is a U.S. territory, and that counts for a lot. That counts for a lot. It's a territory, and it's not a state. But what does that mean? That means that they can write their own rules. And that's in our U.S. Constitution. And the Senate and the Congress of the United States said, you guys have these unique capabilities that the rest of the 50 states do not have. So I'm going to come back to that. So this is important here. It's 120 plus daily flights, international flights from the mainland and international coming
Wow.
into Puerto Rico. Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but if you have that hobby of watching planes, you'll see them landing. We're only 2.5 hours from Miami, 3.5 hours from New York, which is a lot closer than going to Hawaii or going to Jamaica or any of these other places. Again, U.S. currency. This is the United States. There is an incredible shortfall of short-term rental housing and hotel rooms. And the government of Puerto Rico, the government of the United States, gives a strong incentive to invest in this area. Because what slows Puerto Rico down from making more money in tourism is the lack of vacation rentals. Another thing to add on top of that is 97% of the entire island is an opportunity zone.
Wow.
Okay. Not just some little speed, but 97% of the entire island is an opportunity zone. And then the big thing is a massive one. There's a massive tax incentives and tax breaks. And those two are two different things, by the way, for people who are entrepreneurs, real estate investors. That is a massive thing. That's what I call it the monarch of the United States. So if I was to ask, and I'll throw this question out, how many people here, what would you say is the top three industries in Puerto Rico? If I was to throw out that question. What would you guys think it is?
So just Young and Cassie, just put it in the chat or come off your mute or something. What would
Mm-hmm.
you say is the top industries in Puerto Rico? Cassie says tourism,
Okay. Cassie says tourism. Okay.
agriculture.
Okay. All right. Let's keep on going. What else? Do you have anything else in the chat?
I thought for
Uh,
sure it was going to be tourism because whenever you hear about Puerto Rico, you hear about people going to visit the beaches and things like that. I mean, that's
Okay.
how people in the United States, us, that's what we tend to think of it like.
Okay.
Oh, fishing. Okay.
Fishing. Okay. Okay. All right. Which is kind of a subset of tourism. All right. Okay. So, Sarah, what do you think?
Well, we've already talked about it before, so should I give it away?
Okay. Well, hold on. Before you give it away,
Okay.
um, Cassie put a good question into the chat about natural disasters, hurricanes. I'm going to come to that, and that's actually an opportunity for us. Okay. That's a really specialized area, but I'm going to come back to that.
Ooh,
So,
I like the sound of that.
the number one industry in Puerto Rico, believe it or not, it is not tourism. Okay, it is not tourism. Tourism it is not. The number one industry in Puerto Rico, believe it or not, is Sarah. I'll let you say it.
Was it pharmaceuticals?
So it's pharmaceutical manufacturing. Okay,
Right.
so you would have never thought that, right? Oh, wait a minute, pharmaceutical manufacturing. Yeah, that's the number one industry in Puerto Rico. If you look at the number of pharmaceutical companies on the slide, you would think Puerto Rico is going to sink. I mean, look at all these companies, right? And these are all the now. Why are they there, right? Why are all these companies there? Because the incredible tax incentives, the investing incentives that are offered to these companies. That's why I call it the Monaco of the United States. Give you an example. Just about all of us here, whatever your political views are, probably got vaccinated against COVID, right? Probably got a COVID vaccine, right? Well, guess what? Every COVID vaccine made by Pfizer, which you see right here in the slide, on the upper right hand side was made in Puerto Rico on
Wow.
a world global basis. On a global basis, it was made in Puerto Rico. 95% of the world's heart rate monitors, pacemakers, made in Puerto Rico. And guess what? These guys have a great deal. What's your deal? They don't pay any taxes. So the deal is, they don't pay property tax, no capital gains tax. I mean, this is an incredible opportunity for them. So, number one industry in Puerto Rico is medical manufacturing, gigantic here. Number two is, believe it or not, um, tech, tech firms. People say, why would a tech firm be in Puerto Rico? Again, those incentives. Imagine if you're Bill Gates, right? You have a time machine, Back to the Future. You go back in time. You can be Steve Jobs, and may his soul rest in peace, or Bill Gates. Would you still start off in Silicon Valley and be stuck with all those taxes? Or would you go to a place where you have favorable taxing in your favor? And on top of that, they give you incentives. So tech is the number two. Number three industry is investing. If you have a hedge fund, if you've got a gigantic crypto fund, you go to Puerto Rico, you don't pay taxes. And now, yes, there's always some little thing you got to pay here and there. But for the most part, you don't have to worry about it. It's almost like a non-issue. Now there's rule associated with it, of course. So those are the top three industries in Puerto Rico. Tourism is a distant number four, distant number four. And the government of Puerto Rico wants that distance number four to come up and be a close number four or be a three. Okay.
Well, that sounds
So
like a great opportunity for people like us.
it is because you see what happens here is because of we get a lot of the same advantages that these big dogs have, right? It's like when I talk with the government of Puerto Rico, I love walking into a meeting and say, "Hey, can I get the Pfizer package? I'd like to get the Pfizer package, please." Right? So, and they laugh about it. They know what I'm talking about. So, next slide here. So this shows here, again, how big medical manufacturing is. And people say, "Well, Nelson, why is that important to me?" Because we're getting a lot of the same benefits that these big guys get. Like, and I need Pfizer because that's like the biggest thing I can think of in the manufacturing, in medical manufacturing. So, and these benefits are given. This is not a Nelson came up with some crazy thing. This is by the Department of Economic Development for the government of Puerto Rico. And as you can see right here, we fall into the visitors economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boutique hotels, visitors economy. Here, which is manufacturing, that is, guess what? Medical manufacturing. You've got the other incentives, individual, these are the high net worth guys, um, the creative industries, which are movies, finances, insurance, and financial services. You see right here? I don't know if you can see my slide,
Yep,
my
yep.
mouse. So each one of these what's called acts, Act 60, this is the umbrella. We fall into the visitors economy. Okay. So that is our incentives that apply to us for the tourism industry, hence boutique hotels. Okay.
And there's probably a website that we can find this kind of information, right? Like on the
Yeah,
government website.
and yes, and the unique thing about Puerto Rico, like I always wonder, and again, this kind of goes into that, and the only way I can think about it because Puerto Rico has some very unique things about it. Actually, a lot of unique things about it. Um, they translated this into English, and I can send this presentation out to you guys. Don't, it's from I haven't made any changes to it. It's from the government of Puerto Rico, from the Department of Economic Development. You can probably find that on the website. It might be in Spanish, but and now just recently, I think in the last year, they started to translate a lot of this stuff into English. And people would say, why don't they have it into English? Well, because think about it. If you're Pfizer, you've got a slew of attorneys and a bunch of smart people that you pay a bunch of money to, that they can just, make it into English. Um, so, but yes, and I can send it to you as well. So here, it's got from the website, from the presentation, from their presentation, it says right here, visitors economy, who's eligible, right? And then it's got, hotels and you
Oh
can all
yeah,
up
look
and
at
down the
that.
list. But guess what? It's got the type of tax, income tax, 4%, distribution of dividends, 100% exempted. You don't pay anything.
What?
Yeah. Property tax exemption, 75. No, obviously you got to talk
What?
to your CPA. And property taxes in Puerto Rico are extremely low. Why? Because they haven't updated these things since 1955.
Yeah.
So you're getting a 75% exemption on property taxes that have not been updated since 1955. Volume of municipal business, and then we just got this past week um, on basically no taxes on articles that you're using continually. So, for example, we're buying a bunch of stuff, we're not going to pay any taxes on that. And this
Now,
decree is for 15 years. One second, and then you can extend it for another 15. Go for it,
okay.
Susan.
Oh, so what do you know what the population is of Puerto Rico, the people that live there?
What are we like in the 2 million? No, it's 2 to 3 million range, I'd say. You know.
Yeah, especially right now as we're recording this and we're going through all this, we don't need to get into it, but all the stuff with the president and the tax audits and stuff like that. It's like, man, how do they get away with giving all these tax benefits and credits and things?
Well, it's simple. It's written into their constitution, and our Congress approved it. It's simple. There's no like weird funny business. I mean, when that many pharmaceutical companies show up, and that thing has been signed, deal, and done. So all of this again. It's the monarch of the United States. So it is part of something that they can do because they're not a state. If they were a state, they couldn't get away with this. They couldn't do
That's
this.
really interesting.
They're a territory, and people would say, "Well, Puerto Rico will become a state." Well, yeah. I mean, let's see who's going to fight against all those pharmaceutical companies for them to give up that.
Right. Yeah, so it's almost like we have a protection just by being neighbors with all these massive corporations. It's kind of the protection for people like us going in and helping the tourism industry.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and then here's the tax credits, which really you should think of these as tax incentives. Now, these get a little bit somewhat complicated, right? And it's not that they're complicated, just as retail investors, it's important to expand our way of thinking, right? So, we just qualify for this. We get what are called tax credits, but really think of these as tax incentives.
Mhm.
And these tax credits can be sold. There is an actual market for this, and they're sold to companies that pay a lot of taxes. So, for example, if you're PepsiCo, you or Coca-Cola, you pay a bunch of taxes. So they buy these tax credits from us. And so how does this work? And I think we even have an example there. So let's say it's a $10 million property and it's $10 million all in down payment, rehab costs, first year operations, mortgage, all of that, $10 million. So we can choose whether we want the 30% tax credit or the 40% tax credit, which it would be $4 million. Let's say it was for 40%, it'd be $4 million tax credit. And we could in turn sell that $4 million tax credit at a slight discount. And that depends on, how close you are to the tax season or within the tax season to a PepsiCo or a Coca-Cola. And so let's say we sell it for 95 cents on the dollar. So what is that? $3.6 million. So they get a $400,000 savings on taxes because they'd have to pay the 4 million, and we would get 3.6 million. And 3.6 is totally tax free that we would
Wow.
get. And that's broken up into three installments. How we can get that over a 3-year installment period. Why did they do that? Well, 'cause they want to make sure you're holding on to that hotel and continue. You're not going to take the 3.6 million and say goodbye.
Right, right.
Um, so, but that is a huge incentive, you see. So on top of that, the investment has to create a strong return. You get that on top of that. Or as my partner Mark says, it's like getting a refinance without a refinance.
Yeah, this is fascinating. This is something that looks like we need to do a whole class just on this tax credit thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I always think of it as a tax incentive, tax
Yeah,
credit,
tax incentive.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because it took me a while. It takes a while to get to wrap our brains around that. So okay, so again, going back to Puerto Rico, why short-term rentals in Puerto Rico? Why boutique hotels? Because the government needs to have this grow, right? Because it's everybody thinks of Puerto Rico as tourism, except the big guys, right?
Hmm.
And if you look at the neighbors, the neighboring islands, for them, it's a big part of their economy. I mean, in Puerto Rico, it's 10% of the GDP. The closest one, Barbados, it's 14%. Jamaica, double. Virgin Islands,
Wow.
triple. Aruba, 60%. So Puerto Rico is like, wait a minute, we're part of the US. We're closer to most places. We should be able to make more money from tourism too. And the trend, right? So people look at trends. I think, Young, we were talking about this a bit. You look at the trends here. Every year, for short-term rentals, the bookings, which really boutique hotels fall in there, has been growing. And if you look at 2022, 40% of all visitors stayed in short-term rentals.
Hmm.
40% of all.
That's
Um,
surprising.
and again, it's because we have so many unique places that you can stay. In Puerto Rico, it's not like the Dominican Republic where you're probably going to want to stay at an all-inclusive. Why? Because once you leave that property, you and Dom rep.
Mm.
Okay. In Puerto Rico, you leave the property, you're still in the United States. You can't tell you're in the United States, but you're in the United States. Okay.
Now, is part of the
Uh,
reason so many people stay at short-term rentals because there's not enough hotel rooms?
exactly. Because,
Okay.
well, first of all, there's not enough. The second thing is and this is a uniqueness, when you stay in a short-term rental, you get to really experience Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
If you stay at the Marriott, yeah, it looks, land, but you're at the Marriott at the end of the day.
And that's something that, I believe with boutique hotels is you can create that experience. You can give
Hmm.
like a cultural experience through, through that. So
Yeah.
for the hotel investors listening, I mean, this is a big data point. People, it looks like 40% of tourists going to Puerto Rico want the cultural experience. They
Yeah.
don't
And
stay at a
mhm.
Holiday Inn or Marriott or whatever.
Yeah, because it's tough to get that like, wow, I'm in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get it in a big hotel. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great
So,
thing to think about.
and here's just some more data points, as Sarah calls them. And just comparing Puerto Rico to Hawaii, and if you look at the number of rooms, visitor per hotel room, a lot more in Puerto Rico. Why? Because there's a lot less places to stay, and the price to acquire a property, it's a fourth of the price of, let's say, in Hawaii. So,
Yeah.
to be able to get in. So let's go in. So this is our property, by the way. It looks a little bit different now because we're doing a lot of work on it. But it's a property. It was off market from a personal relationship to another person. They spoke to I introduced someone to someone. They had a conversation partner, Mark. He asked me. I knew all the other people, and we jumped on it. So yeah, so we had this property right here. Um, so the highlights, it's a 16 units. It's a commercial space at the barber shop. We're going to take that room, make it into another suite as well. Um, and this is the plan right there on the property. And the big thing is we know we can refinance it in less than 18 months. Actually, in a year, we'll be able to refinance it. So we'll be able to pull out all of our equity and pay off all the investors in a year, in 1 year.
That's great.
Yeah. So this is one of those things that you just got to keep on plugging away at. Um, so if we do this analysis of the market, right? So this is the market right here. This is my mouse. You see Old San Juan. That's where you have the old fort. That's the view from behind me, by the way. It's Old San Juan. And the property is right here. So it's not even 15 minutes to Old San Juan. Not even 15, a little bit over 15 minutes to the airport. So you have that. The T-Mobile district, which reminds me a lot of Miami. Condado, which is a hop and goings place. But this area right here, that is the new Renaissance, or the almost like the art district that's
Oh,
making a comeback
okay.
there. It's called Santurce, within San Juan. And then, you can move out and you go to the other places all around the island. And then we looked at our competitors. So this is ours right here. So the way we did this analysis, and, I got to give Mark the credit that he's due, very much like the military, we did kept the expenses really high, income really low, and then we knew that if we could make that happen with the lowest room rate, then we would be okay. And that kind of goes back to the question, I think it was Cassie was asking about the natural disasters and so forth. So what we did, we went in going in saying, what's the worst case scenario? So we went in doing that worst case scenario situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took our information, our analysis, to the banker, and the banker even said, "Look, you guys are like planning for catastrophes. Even your underwriting is even tougher than our underwriting." He said, "You guys can, your expenses won't be that bad, your occupancy won't be that low." I said, "Well, we want to plan for the worst and hope for the best."
Right.
So that's what we did. Another thing that we've done, and again, this goes back to Cassie's question of the natural disasters. One of the things that I'm doing, like I said, I was trained to say colonel in the army, or retired colonel in the army, but I'm also registering the property so that when, heaven forbid, a natural disaster happens and FEMA or the National Guard need housing for the troops, we're going to immediately appear. So we'll end up getting a blanket government contract from Uncle Sam for the property. You see? So we're planning even for that
Yes,
contingency as well.
that makes a lot of sense. Now, do these other hotels get those too, or is that something special that you get?
That's something special that I'm doing. I'll probably talk to those guys later on about this as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's one of those things that you plan for. Mhm. And again, that goes back into that whole kind of military MDMP thing. And I see a question right
Right,
here
right.
coming in. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm going to read out Cassie's question. Or Sarah, do you want to read it out?
sure. So Cassie's wondering, in that tax incentive chart that you had, it talked about creatives. Is that why you chose your location? Because and this is an art district, you said. Is that one of the reasons you chose that location because of the tax incentives for the art community?
Okay, so Cassie, that is a fantastic question and great minds think alike. So we chose that location because we know it's up and coming, right? So and it's right in the middle. It's right in the middle. So that's why we chose the location. Uh, but I'm kind of jump ahead on your questions. Can you double dip? And the answer to that is yes, you can double dip. Now, what does that creative mean? That means when they come to make movies. So, for example, if you remember Black Panther, uh, part of Black Panther was actually filmed in Puerto Rico.
Oh, that was
So
smart.
yeah, yeah. So they got all those incentives, right? So they got all those incentives because Black Panther was filmed in Puerto Rico. But the so let me give you an example of a double dipping, right? So a person can be there for Act 60 as an individual, all right, and then also invest there. So they get the both incentives, the investment incentive, excuse me, for the business for the hotel, and then on the personal side too as well. Or someone that I know actually found out about it. Um, the company, and found out about this today. The company Invicta makes watches. I'm a watch guy, and I was meeting today with some folks in the tourism department, which is they got a lot of power in the island, and they were telling me about a watch company. I won't mention the name, but I like their watches. They, the CEO of the company came and they opened up a store on the island, right? So that counts. That's an incentive right there, right? The
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship one. But then for their top salespeople, executives, an attaboy for a good employee, they bought a series of Airbnbs on top of the store. So when they're going to have a meeting and they say, hey, so and so, you won the salesman of the quarter of the year, whatever, boom, they go to Puerto Rico, they stay at their own property.
Mm-hmm.
So they're double dipping, so to speak, right? Because they got the store got one, and then the vacation rentals that they got one too as well. So they're double dipping. And I
This
know someone
is
else.
this is pretty cool. This is really smart. It kind of makes taxes sound a little more fun.
Yeah, well, the tax incentives.
Yeah.
So and then I know someone else today who's going to be doing something like that as well, where they have a like a luxury type store, and then they're going to get some vacation rentals. And when they fly in or people fly in and they have special showings, they can stay at their property. See?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, yeah. hmm So the answer to
Now,
that, Cassie, is yes. Go for Susan. Sarah,
just
sorry.
a side note here. So I like to get the Frontier Airline Go Wild Pass, and it's a
Uh-huh.
whole year that you just pay for a membership up front, and then for the whole year you get super discounted flights, like $15 each way. And
Huh.
I just checked Puerto Rico. It's $38 to go from Denver to Puerto Rico.
Oh, you and your family got no reason to come down.
I know. I was like, all right, I can get a ticket tomorrow.
And yeah, and thank you for telling me about this frontier. Um, bless you.
Cassie said she has a membership too. Yeah. Yeah. I every year I'm getting it now for my whole family because, and especially because it's not international. The international flights are a little bit more, but this is like, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You can go to Puerto Rico and do business there and get all these tax incentives and be in a beautiful area with awesome people like you and for really awesome financial, so. Oh, Cassie
Mm-hmm.
says they have a Christmas sale of only $2.99 for the year. Yeah,
All right.
yeah, that's great.
I'm gonna have and well, good. I have to get this. All right. All right. So this is the more locations around the property. Um, and these are great. And the great thing is they're walking distance. La Placita is it, but everything else is walking distance and it's safe. So we talked up here. We've always got to talk about risk management and then the financial assumptions. So we go into this. Excuse me. So we go into the different things we were looking at, the refi, occupancy, average daily rate, and obviously expenses. Okay, our ownership structure. All right. Now this is where the power of the masterminds comes in, right? Because we were thinking, okay, how do we decrease our expenses, right? Because you got to decrease expenses all the time. And in one of my masterminds, we talked about uh, how to do. I mean, I think young, you were talking about masterminds. So instead, what we did is we got a lending entity, created a lending entity, and then the lending entity would loan to the property, and the property would in turn end up giving out a lien and a promissory note to the lending entity. In other words, to the individuals who had loaned out. So these are the people that basically said, "Hey, we believe in you. We believe in Puerto Rico." About maybe 50% of all the investors that we have flew to Puerto Rico. And it was nice. Again, the government of Puerto Rico wants you to invest. We were able to get the deputy director of the tourism company, which is like a pretty big deal, to present to them. And then we got the mayor's office to give us the mayor's office to do a presentation to them that they came and talked. And it just so happens that they also said, look, these areas, they if you didn't get in there, that boat might have gone. But these other areas we would recommend, and that was right smack in the middle where we had the property. So that
Beautiful.
was a nice plug. Yeah, that was a nice plug. So that's the ownership structure right there. And then we talk about the loan, how it's going to get paid off. But and this is the neighboring property, our neighbor property next to us. So we're borrowing some design elements from it. And this is what it looked like before, and this is the afterwards. So
So that's the
before,
neighbor before and after.
yeah,
Okay. Wow,
and
that's a
after,
beautiful renovation.
yeah, it is. So yeah,
Now,
fantastic
did
job
these
that they
used to be like apartments? But
did.
it was a hotel.
No, 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 no. It was my goodness. It was everything. I mean, some of these places. I mean, heck, they're over 100 years old. But the
Yeah.
way they do construction in Puerto Rico is, I mean, everything is cement, cement, and guess what? More cement. They don't know what drywall is. I mean, like, what's a drywall thing? So some of these were warehouses and stores. This used to be an area where trains used to go by. So yeah, it was, the older warehouses. Okay. And thank you right there. So I'm open to answer any more questions, anything that you might have. I'm all ears.
So can you go back to the did you had a photo of this hotel you're talking about that you had that you showed it on the map?
Okay, let's go back here. And there's a question from Young on how does financing work, which is a key question in Puerto Rico. You talking about this one?
Okay, and I see there's the neighbor next door. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Neighbor.
then you said that
hmm
you've done some renovations since this photo was taken.
hmm Yeah, I don't have them here, but what have we done? The steps here were squared away. I mean, I would call it a flop house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, pay $30 to spend the night. So this was upgraded. This was taken out right here. There's going to be a breakfast area, right? It'll be right here, or right there. You can't see this man culture over there. And all of that gets approved by tourism, by the way, the tourism company. This is all painted, skim coated. This has a very nice look that looks integrated into here. This is going to be like a suite. There's another suite back here, and then so we have from smaller rooms, very small rooms, to large, like full suites that we have.
How many units are in the hotel?
It's going to be a total of 15 units.
Okay. So it doesn't look that big from the photo. Does it extend beyond the orange?
Yeah. So because of the front is very deceptive. So
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not, Casa Siana is only 6 units,
Right.
right? We're 15 units.
Mm-hmm.
So we're almost 3 times the size. So from here, you've got units here, you've got units here, and then it goes all the way back. This just keeps on going back and then back here too. and then we come back over here. Okay.
I would love to
So
see like a video tour sometime.
okay, all right, we can make that happen. We can definitely make that happen. And then kind of go into Cassie's question. Here we have a generator. Now, at some point, sooner versus later, um, I want to have put in solar panels, and then we've got total coverage.
Right.
Because let's think about this. There's power outages in Puerto Rico. We can charge a premium if people know that they'll never have a power outage.
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
know that they'll never have a power outage. If something happens and I want to get a FEMA contract, I can say, look, my value add is that your FEMA personnel can always send their reports up. So again, this goes back to the opportunity. We're also getting Starlink, which means no matter what happens, they'll always have internet connectivity to send the
Hmm.
reports out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Hmm. So Young's question is financing. So how do you finance things in Puerto Rico? Well, the first way to finance it in Puerto Rico is seller financing. Uh, I am always incredibly surprised. I can be talking to some country bumpkin, some person in the middle of nowhere who you swear they don't have even a third grade education, and they'll talk to you about seller financing,
Hmm.
which is always surprising to me. So that's the first way. And then Puerto Rico's banking community is relatively small. Why? Because they want to protect Puerto Rico's um, own internal industry. And so what they do is you have your four banks, Banco Popular, Oriental Bank, First Bank, and then they've got this, I call them super credit unions, which are las cooperativas. And what they do is very interesting. The credit unions will actually get together to make specific loans to either bolster these other three or on their own because they have to loan money that benefits the members and or that'll benefit an area where their members will live. So that is how financing is done in Puerto Rico.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm. And then there's a specific company, and I'll put a plug for them, Preferred Mortgage. Um, they specialize in short-term rentals and boutique hotels. And so they do it, and they have a lot of information too. So they're great if when you're doing your analysis and underwriting to run your numbers by them because they have the best intel.
Right. So how, if somebody wants, oh, Cassie has a question. Did you choose a management company or do you have it set up more like an Airbnb, like a virtual?
Okay. So that's another great question. So for the tax incentives, right? So it's was it all the rave is to do these virtual this and virtual that. Well, when a person hopped on a plane and they go somewhere, they want to see where they're going, right? In other words, they want to experience that. And so in to get all the tax incentives, there are certain parameters that they put into place, and it helps the economy of Puerto Rico, and it helps us too. Why? Because people want to experience Puerto Rico. So, for example, we have staff, so that helps give that experience. The question was, do we have a management company? Well, we self-manage. We're owner operators. Okay, we're owner operators. However, do have a line item for the expense of a management company. Why is that? Because someday in the future, somebody says, "Hey, I'd like to buy this thing." We can say, "Hey, look, this is with a management expense right there." Okay, all right. So, Sarah,
Oh, I was muted. So if somebody wants to get involved in this, what do they, how can they get involved?
it depends what kind of involvement that they'd like to do. Do they want to be an active investor? Do they want to be a passive investor? One thing I'd always recommend is and I came up with this phrase, the 8,000-mile screwdriver, and then Mark and Justin ran with it too. Uh, is what you don't want to do is be someone who is totally trying to do something from 8,000 miles away, right?
Mm.
Okay. You do want to have a strong team on the ground, a strong presence on the ground to make things happen because Puerto Rico is Puerto Rico. It ain't the United States, right? And if anything, there's almost like this sub-market of buying failed deals. where people are like, "Oh, I can do this from New York or Miami," and who do you have? Oh, I got some guy over there. No, it doesn't work that way. Well, Puerto Rico is definitely a place for pioneers. So develop, have a team on the ground, excuse me, partner on the ground. I mean, the way we do it is I'm here, but we have a manager here. We have, like, we went through an entire vetting process for every individual. It must have been at least 5 or 10 interviews to be able to develop a team.
So potentially somebody, in the on the mainland, say they want to invest in Puerto Rico, you guys could potentially be the partners that are on the ground, and there could be a collaboration to acquire some more of these properties.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that is yes. For this one, it was like a proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
There, because at some point you got to pull the trigger. So it was a proof of concept. We jumped in. Pretty much everyone who invested with us, they said, okay, look, I want to be first on the list when your next deal, the next opportunity comes up. So yeah, and that's how we do it. My two partners, they live off island. They're up north. They're in Jersey, both of them. They come here every so often, but we use technology to the utmost. I got to give the guys credit for that. They've taught me a lot about technology. We have Zoom calls twice a week, so we can maintain the momentum of things going. We maintain the momentum of things going to be able to have that. But yeah, and remember, when people invest here, they get a lot of the tax. Then there's the tax benefits, and then there's the tax incentives too. But the fact is that I compare what we're doing right now to what I have in Fort Lauderdale, and my average daily rates are probably the same. Yeah, they're the same, give or take. But my expenses here are a lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
My expenses are a lot lower. And I have almost like an extra tourist season. No one said, what do you mean? How do you get an extra tourist season? I'm going into the weeds now. Remember, come Christmas, December, people come escaping the cold. Come June, July, who wants to go to a hot island? Puerto Ricans do. Why? Because they want to go visit the abuelo, the abuela.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't necessarily stay with them. They stay at an Airbnb
Oh,
or they stay at a boutique
interesting.
hotel.
Right.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
So you have that whole, diaspora comes back, and there's a huge movement now for people to come back and visit the island. And you see them coming back. And I grew up here, I grew up there, and they
Oh,
stay at the
wow, that's
Airbnb.
cool.
You know,
And
um,
that's the kind of thing you would never know unless you were there witnessing it, really. I haven't heard of that living in
yeah,
Colorado.
yeah. And I found out about that. One is I got myself invited to the governor's mansion, which is this over here. The governor's got this beautiful, that's the fort. So you learn about these things, and they do a great job bringing people back for the summer. And they'll fill up all the Airbnbs. So in the summertime
Yeah.
when it's super hot.
Well, Nelson,
Um,
this is fascinating. I feel like we could do a whole series on Puerto Rico. I mean, there's so
mhm,
many topics that I would love to just dive in further. But this is a great overview and an introduction to the whole thing. And
mhm.
I love the idea that you have a team set up and you have these systems so that if somebody wants to like dip their toes in it or just kind of get started, that you can be a potential ally in the process and you could be a potential partner or collaborator in that for people that want to get started.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'd be great. I tell folks, you can reach out to me, myself, reach to Mark, reference this, call all that. And it would be fantastic. It would be great to have the folks. And Young and Cassie, do you guys have any questions? Any other questions? It looks like we have one or two more questions that came in.
All right. So Cassie says, high tour season in Puerto Rico is only December to April. How do occupancy projections change over the seasons? So do you know the like percentages of what the tourism season is like in the summer? Or maybe that's something that's not as talked about.
Yeah. The average, so let's go yearly, make it easy. The average occupancy is 60% island wide,
Mhm.
right? We know that our neighbor next door, Casa Siana, their occupancy is 80%. Okay. So, because the thing in Puerto Rico, you got to remember, they're looking at short-term rentals, and the vast majority of people that have short-term rentals in Puerto Rico, they treat it like a hobby. They don't treat it like I'm running a business. Even a side hustle, you treat it like a business. It is a side hustle. So it has a lot of a hobby treatment. Okay. So that's a 60% occupancy. If you're running it more tighter, so to speak, you're going to get the 80% occupancy. Okay. And then how much does it change? Is it drastic? I wouldn't say that the word is drastic. Remember, Puerto Rico it's an island, and I'm using my hands here. And then there's key different pockets. Okay. In the summertime, it doesn't hit as hard as, let's say, parts of South Florida, right? Or even a lot of parts. Why? Because you have that gigantic diaspora that comes back,
Mhm.
right? And you have the New Yorkers, which is a bunch of them, Chicago Regans, California Regans. Now you got Orlando Regans, right? And they're coming back. So they will stay in places. Interestingly enough, they don't stay with the family. They stay close to the family, but in an Airbnb. So it'll be 2 or 3 days with their families. Then it's the beach. Then they stay up. And the great thing about it, because it's very family oriented, nobody's trashing up places, which is a beautiful thing. A lot of cooking going on, though. A lot of cooking. But no, unfortunately, it's just the Americans kind of get rowdy, but not in Puerto Rican guests, which is a beautiful thing there. Okay. And the passive investor screen time. Okay. So this would be here. Okay. So this is here. Let me close up my own screen so I can see. So what we were paying folks was 10% per annum. Okay. So they were going to get at a 10% rate of return for the year or for the number of months until we got to the refinance. Okay. So we gave ourselves an incentive, which means we have to pay more. We gave to accomplish things on time or ahead of time, so be able to pay them back. Okay. So they were all the bank, so to speak. They were all lenders, and they all have first right on the next deals. Something I didn't put in here, but they also have the option, which I'm going to emphasize, to stay at the property as well once we're up and running. Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Let's see. Any other questions? I think this is fantastic, and we're gonna put the contact information in the notes here for people that are listening. And then, of course, if you could share your information screen one more time for the video,
Mhm.
Nelson, then people
Yeah.
can take that information and email you, call you.
Okay.
Do you have a website?
Yeah. So, all right. So, a couple of, well, actually, all the questions are good. Um, as far as I have a website, but it's not related to this, and we're setting up our website. We're going through the whole process right now of the for direct bookings, all that. Going all through that entire process, setting that up, because our platform we're able to receive VRBO, Expedia, Airbnb, and direct booking on the website. That is for operations of the property, for right there. The and you can now to reach me or reach Mark, or I don't have Justin's right there. You can reach through my number, and then our minimums for folks to get started. We're flexible, is 25,000.
All right. Well, that's, most people I talk to that want to do something like this, that's doable for them. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're opening it up to, a wide range of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what happens is that people see and they come and they. So, for example, all about 50% of all our investors, they came to the island. And I said, there's a difference between Nelson talking about this versus an official from the government of Puerto Rico saying, this is the package we're offering.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, like I call it, this is the Pfizer package,
You're right.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this information and these opportunities with us, Nelson. I'm excited to explore it some more, and I'm excited to come visit you in Puerto Rico on my Frontier Pass. And let's do a field trip.
That sounds good. And Frontier to take care of you guys with that gigantic plug that you did. Fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
That, uh, so, for
Cool.
example, that's like another opportunity, right? To talk to the
Exactly. Yeah.
airlines and tell them, hey, your your people can stay at our place. Um, and so, I'm saying as soon as we get up and running, one of the things is we have all these concerts taking place. Bad Bunny, right? Um, so the whole place will be sold out for weeks because of that.
Yeah. I think you're right. All
All
right.
right.
Well, if you all have more questions, this is for the recording. We're going to be putting this up. We're going to be publishing this. So if you have any questions, just put it in the chat, and then we can get back to you, as we see things come up. And of course, contact Nelson for more information, and you can contact me too, and we can all, connect together. So,
No,
yeah,
Sarah, thank you
Cassie
for your
says she's
call.
up for an educational field trip. All right. Well,
I was about to say, we should really explore that,
yeah, maybe we can
especially
do a
that frontier.
mastermind, for the boutique hotel group, boutique
Hmm.
hotel mastermind, and we can stay at the hotel.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. We really have to capture that thought. That would be a great one.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it offline, and we'll
We
see.
definitely
We'll
will.
make it happen.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. Pleasure to meet you guys, Cassie, Young, Sarah. Again, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm honored to have you. It's my pleasure, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.